Hello and welcome to The Menu, Monocle Radio's food and drink program. I'm your host, Chiara Rimella. Coming up, we delve into the pleasure of ice cream in whatever season.
There's so many different memories of ice cream that, I don't know, it's just, it really is a part of your life from the get-go.
Also on the program, our Copenhagen correspondent meets an accomplished butcher in the city.
Our charcuterie production is like Nordic recipes, and then we cure it the Mediterranean way.
Plus, we visit an exhibition dedicated to the quirky world of Japanese food replicas. All that here on The Menu on Monocle Radio. Though most people might associate ice cream with summer, real aficionados of this dessert know that there's no wrong time to tuck into a scoop of the cold stuff. Autumn may be well underway in the Northern Hemisphere, but in Australia, things are about to warm up, and that's the country where Terri Mercieca grew up and found inspiration for her brand Happy Endings. From Golden Gay Time to Frosty Fruits, many of Australia's classic and nostalgia-tinted ice creams and ice blocks get reinterpreted in her delicious and joyous creations. Having started off her career in fine dining restaurants, Terri quickly realised that the dessert section was where she really belonged. Soon, though, she decided she wanted to bring the depth of flavour and quality of high-end kitchen puddings to a wider public. Today, her Happy Endings ice cream sandos are stocked in some of London's best delis. Now, she has written a book, The Happy Endings Cookbook, for people to experiment with making these inventive desserts themselves. Terri joined me in the studio to talk all things ice cream, though I had to begin by asking her about her brand's cheeky name.
It does get a lot of giggles. I'm not going to lie. It's one of those things where you sort of I think at the beginning when I had it called Happy Endings, I was like, am I going to get away with this? Is this too on the line? But my girlfriend, we used to do this. So Happy Endings started as like a sort of clandestine dessert night where you had 5 courses of dessert paired with natural wines. And we did that in 2014. And we had a few supper clubs like that. And basically the idea was this... I wrote a brief for a friend, like this New York meets Hong Kong kind of back alley place where you go in and then it's all decked out, like really cute, low lighting, can't handle bright lights. Low lighting and sort of people just really enjoying themselves and it's like unexpected. So that was the idea. And so we were trying to come up with a name for it. And we were just sitting there going, afters or this or that. And all these names. And I was like, they're a bit flat. And then she goes, Happy Endings. And I was like, oh, tap, tap, tap. Do you think I can get away with that? And we were like, yeah, let's do it. And then my friend was like, you need to trademark that name immediately. And I was like, okay, fine. So we did that. And then we had these Happy Endings sort of dessert nights for years. And then it slowly morphed into an ice cream business. And we don't do the dessert nights anymore. But maybe one day I'll bring them back.
But it's interesting because you started off as a chef kind of cooking at really fine dining, kind of high-end establishments and kind of also cooking through, the kitchen in some respects. What attracted you to the world of desserts and why do you think they deserve to be 5 courses showcased in this way? And obviously it's now the heart, it is the business and it's the cookbook that we're about to talk about as well. Why desserts and why do they deserve the attention that the business and the cookbook gives them?
I guess, so I started cooking in the 90s. I've been next year cooking for 30 years, so it's been a long time. And, well, you got put on desserts first. Being a woman, sometimes I'd say that's part of that. But also it was an easy section to put. It's not as busy. It's a little bit more chill. So maybe that was a good place to learn. So I started straight into the dessert section, which I found amazing. Like I made my first ice cream and I was like, oh, this is better than a Magnum. What? I was so excited. I just couldn't bear it. It was too much for me. I was so into it. But I guess what I found was over the years, I have worked at some really amazing fine dining establishments and they all had so much attention to detail around the food and around desserts, all the way through the menu. So I guess for me it was why is it that we have this amazing skill set and people are sort of not really embracing it, or you go to a restaurant and you're sort of let down by the desserts? It really used to annoy me. So I was one day, maybe I'll just do that.
I think there's another thing that you say in the book that I think is really interesting. That is, you got taught that as a chef, you shouldn't just try a mouthful, but you should try eating the whole dish, which I think with a dessert is so important, because you can have a mouthful of something and it's amazing, but then eating the whole thing just becomes a lot.
Yeah.
So from a chef's point of view, I suppose, how do you make a dessert that you want to eat the whole thing off? Like, where's the right balance in creating the right combination of flavors that kind of gets you there and doesn't just make you feel sickly?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because like basically I think that's why a lot of people avoid desserts, because they're just like, oh, it's just gonna be really sweet, one note and this kind of thing. But that chef that I work with, that was probably the first time I'd done that, and I thought it was such a good lesson, because it did really change it. Like, you're in the environment, you're sort of listening to all the things, you've got the music on and all that sort of stuff. But when you're in the kitchen, your team are just like, slam, 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 yum, yum, yum. And then you're just like, yeah, that's nice. But you don't take in the whole thing. And so it does help a lot to sort of think about the person's journey through their seating. And what are they going to eat? Are they going to order a steak? Then you don't want to have like the triple chocolate pudding with the sauce and the thing and that all on top, because it's too much. So I guess for me about balance is, like, especially on the 5 courses of desserts, you have to really think about their size. You have to think about seasoning, acidity, like texture is super important. You need to know that that person can finish the dish and not feel overwhelmed or over sweetened out or whatever. But it comes down to sugar. It comes down to, there's so many different parts of it. I could break it down into even further, but I think mostly it's about understanding that not everyone loves just sugar. Desserts are not sugar for sugar's sake. They are more nuanced and intricate, and you can make them better by using less sugar, actually.
I think ice cream is so interesting because it's such a technical thing, but it's also so joyous and so associated with childhood, and it has a sort of carefree aspect to it. And I'm also interested in the peculiarity of your Australian take on this, because we have an Italian and Australian sat in a room, and we're obviously both really passionate about ice cream, but in our own different ways. Yeah. And I'm interested in how you see ice cream being declined in different ways in different countries. And I suppose, what makes an Australian take on ice cream?
That is a really good question. I think, well, sun is a really good starting point. But I guess that, like, the influences in Australia are really mixed. It's a colony of Britain. That's going to have an effect on the cuisine. There's lots of immigration there. So you've got, like, Italians, Greeks, you know, lots of Europeans, lots of Chinese, Japanese, Indian, people from the States. People go there. It's like definitely a diverse culture and country. I think it has also a lot of influence from America. So you kind of see like this like mixing pot of different cuisines.
Well, there's a lot of Australian memories in this. There's a lot of nostalgia. And I mean, I obviously grew up with my own Italian version of it, but there's frosty fruits and pine lime splice, and you've got a recipe for pavlova, of course. You've got peach melba in there, choc top, triple treat. I suppose it's a hard question, but what is your fondest kind of childhood memory of ice cream that ignites that moment of both kind of sweet memory but also passion, and that kind of fuels the endeavour to this day?
I'm just thinking, like, the one memory that comes to me, and I think I don't even know why, but we used to live in this small country town, and there was the service station that you call the servo, which is, you know, obviously we have to, like, make everything shorter, abbreviate everything. So I remember there was, like, these Smurf ice creams. One side was white and one side was blue, and it was on 2 different sticks, and you'd have to break them. So you get 2 ice creams.
Wow.
And I was 5, I think, at the time when we lived there, and I was like, what? You know, I don't remember anything else other than just splitting the sticks and being like, looking at it from side to side going, I've got 2 ice creams now, and feeling really excited about it. But it's definitely
almost biblical, like you multiplied.
You're like, what's going on? What?
Food.
Oh, I want them, and I really want to make them, and I cannot find the molds for the life of me, but I've been trying for years to find those molds. Yeah, and then riding my bike down the shop with my sister or my sisters, or just going to the van, the noise of the whippy van. There's so many different, like, memories of ice cream that, I don't know, it really is a part of your life from the get-go, I think, in a warm country like Australia.
I think also it's interesting that obviously the ice cream that you make is extraordinarily high quality and made with these incredible ingredients. But there's something quite nice, I think, about packaged kind of commercial ice cream. And in a way, I love the fact that your ice creams do come in their own little packet, so that it's very artisanal, but it's kind of echoing this pre-made sort of vibe. Yeah, I suppose, where do you think the line between kind of commercial and artisanal is? Like, do you also have a fondness for some commercial ice creams of your past and of the present that just makes you think like there is a place for both of these things in the market, and also where you're kind of reaching for a bit of that accessibility vibe with the things that you do?
Yeah, I think partly it was the lack of... We are an expensive ice cream. You know, I can't deny that it's costly. And at one point I was like, I want to have an accessible ice cream brand, but I don't know, given the ingredients that we use, that's always possible. You know, so it took me a long time to acknowledge that maybe we weren't as accessible as I would like. But what the intention was in the beginning was to bring that fine dining cooking skill out of the restaurant and put it in a format that was handheld in the street, like what you would do with an ice cream. Go to the shop and get the ice cream, you know, like, but we were in markets and stuff like that. But there is a line between artisan and commercial, and I haven't quite worked out where that lies for me yet. Like, as a business owner and also as an ice cream maker, like, I'm really passionate about the ingredients and the working environment and doing things in a technical way. I love that stuff.
Here in London and Europe, we're kind of heading into winter, but it's okay. Not like that. It's not like that in Australia.
No, it's not.
And secondly, also, the question is, how do you feel about ice cream in winter? Because there's a lot of puddings in here, which actually I think lend themselves very well to the chillier months. And I'm a big fan of hot and cold desserts. So how do you feel about ice cream in winter and hot and cold desserts? Are they a passion of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I love the temperature shock that you get when you have something really hot and really cold. Like, I love that. Like, you know, if you have a hot pudding, you've got cold ice cream, cold cream. Cream sets on the ice cream is very nice. But we do have winter in Australia. I just want to point out. It's sometimes
it does exist.
It does exist. And especially in like places like South and Melbourne, it's quite cold. I think ice cream in winter is really nice. I really like being outside eating ice cream in the winter because you really feel it. Like, there's something quite beautiful about it. So I'm for it. I'm for eating it outside, inside, and out of the tub, but also like just an ice cream outside is nice.
Also, some people may be tempted into thinking, you know, ice cream's ice cream, there's like one way to consume it, but clearly not, because you've created multitude of recipes out of this, you know, and you say in the book, you know, it's not just Raspberry Ripple just straight out of the tub, like there's so much that you can do. How much variation do you think that you can get in ice cream desserts, and what goes from your point of view in terms of assembling the perfect ice cream dessert texture, or what are all the ingredients that create that dish? So
there is a lot of frozen dessert options. Well, it's like you have the base, right? You have the ice cream or the sorbet or gelato, or, you know, there's different things. So in the book I've put semi-freddo, parfait, loads of different types of things that you can make, and varying degrees of difficulty and in varying types of ingredients. So for, like, you can have a bombalasca, it's all about combining the different things. How many different flavours of ice cream you can make. I mean, how many flavours are there in the world?
Have you made some really, really wacky ones?
I made a blue cheese one once for a customer at the cheese bar. It was all right, you know.
It's not unheard of. Some people,
it's not unheard of, no. It's not the weirdest. What is the weirdest flavour? That probably is the strongest flavour I've made. I don't really like making too many weird things, but my friend and I, Jenny, we made a Nazi Lemak.
Wow, now we're talking.
So yeah, we did this pop-up called Peachy Endings. So she's Celestial Peach and I'm Happy Ending, so we combined it. And it was so fun. We had 3 Sunday soft serves, and one of them was with Lalganma. One of them was like a version of Nazi Lemak with little bits of anchovy and sambal. And the other one was called Acid Trip, which was pineapple sorbet with Thai basil, bird's eye. It was so hot. It would make you weep. It was so good. And it was such a fun way of exploring like heat and ice cream and savoury notes. So with the Nazi Lemak one, we did Jenny made the sambal, and that sambal, I swear to God, I ate so much of it, I made myself sick. But we did using the rice to infuse the ice cream base with pandan and a little bit of coconut. So it was enough of a slant towards the savouriness of nasi lemak, but not without feeling like you've just eaten a savoury dish. People really loved it. Actually, it was our bestseller, and I was really not sure how it would go, but it was amazing. It was so fun.
Terri Mercieca there, speaking to me at Midori House. Next, we head to Copenhagen. Here, like in many other cities, specialist butchers have become more of a rarity over the decades given the popularity of supermarket-bought meat, particularly pork and bacon. But as a fresh consciousness for responsibly sourced ingredients becomes commonplace, a new wave of talented and dedicated butchers are coming to the fore. Chef and butcher Michael Museth is hoping to revive the artisanal trade. At Butcheria, his new restaurant-cum-shop on the outskirts of the city centre that's hosted inside a Cold War bunker, Michael is offering locals high-quality pork and beef and homemade charcuterie, combining Danish and Mediterranean techniques. Monocle's Copenhagen correspondent Michael Booth went along to find out more.
My name is Michael Museth. I'm a butcher, and right now we are here at Butcheria. The original idea with Butcheria, which actually has been in my mind for many years, was actually trying to predict how the future butcher shop could be, if there by any means should be a future for butcher shops in Denmark. So, and now it's also my playground. It's also a statement. When you walk through my door, you are actually in a protein business, because I don't care what people eat. My main thing and my craft is butchering. But we also do vegan things, vegetarian things.
What occurs to me, Michael, is that you've picked the wrong country and you've picked the wrong time to start a quality butcher. Danes don't spend money on food, and there's a strong political move away from the consumption of meat. I mean, this is also a country of massive industrial production of meat. Famously, 4 times as many pigs as there are people, but it's not quality meat. What's the story you're trying to tell with what you're doing here?
We're trying to tell that Denmark actually are producing high-quality meat. The sad part is actually that a lot of it, or almost everything, is actually going abroad, because they are very fond of Danish quality meat here, and then we import a lot of lousy meat and sell it. We are packing it in a naughty butcher's environment, kind of trying to test people, and also, if we have them out here, not educate them, but inspire them. Is my meat expensive? Perhaps, but our minced meat is the same price as in the supermarket.
Where are you getting the meat from?
Primarily from Jutland. So we have a pig farmer who is our main. He's a canny countryside or nearby Holstebro. And then we have a very old, inexperienced cow breeder. And they are just walking nearby the west coast, just relaxing, eating. And all the animals only have one bad day.
Yeah. It's pretty bad, but yeah. And how would you describe the state of butchery in Denmark? Because there are almost no butchers anymore, right?
Exactly. I think 10% is closing every year. And 10 years ago, I don't know, there was like 700-800 butcher shops. And slowly, they're shutting down. The recipes are getting thrown away. All the traditions, the knowledge corner.
And why is it important to keep those traditions?
I don't know. If you ask the general public, I'm not sure they know it. But I think when it's gone, people will find out.
Why don't we go in and have a look and see the kind of products that you're making?
Yeah. So out here you can see, among the cows and pigs we're using, this one is actually the bone.
Oh, this is an actual bone?
It's an actual bone. It's
painted pink is like the symbol of the shop,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And it's from a cow. The number was 1211, which was a 10-year-old dairy cow, which is normally processed into minced meat. We double the price the farmer normally will get from the slaughterhouse, and then we make charcuterie. So we have limited edition cured beef.
From dairy cows, from old dairy cows.
Yeah. It's very, very good because it has, had
lived a life.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, and then there's some technique you can do. You can make it walk in the fields 6 months after it's done breastfeeding, and then you will have a massive, a wonderful steak and charcuterie. Yeah. And then, I don't know whether the words work in English, but it's like a eating shop, or a shop you can eat in. So, and then we have, of course, fresh meat, which for from some of the producers we mentioned, all our fresh meat is actually dry aged in the beginning. We lost the traditions, but normally if you put the meat on a hook in the slaughterhouse, it was a normal process back in the days. It should be there for 14 days, then it would end up in my hands. Then we dry age it further. So all our beef we sell for mincemeat or côte de bœuf or whatever, minimum has been hanging for 30 days. And our pork, it's been hanging for up to 14 days.
What have we got in the fridge here today? We've got...
Yeah, we have pork chops. We also have a T-bone from pork. So we're trying to make, like cuts you normally see in the supermarket and also things you don't see. We have, for instance, the feet from the pigs.
Pig's feet, yeah.
Yeah, and then we have a massive hog from the back. We also have slices.
Porchetta as well.
Yes, exactly.
Lomo, so the fatty.
But the main thing I started with was actually cured sausages. So we do a few traditional Danish salamis. Our charcuterie production is like Nordic recipes, and then we cure it the Mediterranean way. And it's something about humidity and active water and things like that. But we're used to Denmark. We have very wet products.
Rullepulse, very classic Danish charcuterie. Yes. What is that?
It's pork belly without skin, and then we season it, and then we actually boil it, poach it, yeah. And then we press it, and then it's a traditional Danish, I don't know, you could say charcuterie as well. The Danish butcher words are so ugly and disgusting in some kind of way, because we try to say,
very direct,
like if you say dried pork neck, it doesn't sell. So if you say copper, people can refer to it, because our traditions in Denmark are not that way. Also, our vocabulary is not that way. So if we try to say the Danish word into it, we tried in the beginning, and it wasn't possible. No. So we can say guanciale, pancetta. We like to slice it when people are here. People often ask me, how do I cook a steak or a côte de bœuf or whatever? But is it 1 kilo? Is it 500 grams? Is it 2 centimeters thick? Is it 3? However, so we actually believe that the expertise we can bring into it when we sell it.
Mikael explained to me that they'd opened Butcheria on the outskirts of the city centre, where there used to be a mix of light and heavy industry, because it was cheaper and there was much more space than, say, in the posh food hall in town, so they have a kitchen garden and can host events and courses and so on. There was also one special feature on the site which they made the most of to age their charcuterie, a unique space whose floors and ceilings were now coated with magical bacteria, a nuclear bunker originally intended to house critical workers from the nearby oil refinery.
So, but actually it's here.
Okay, so this is the Cold War bunker.
Yeah. And then it's it's been quite a journey.
I can smell it already. It smells fantastic.
Yeah, because the first inspector we had, he was a guy who brewed beer, so he knew about bacteria. So it was actually. Otherwise, I'm not sure I was allowed to.
This smell is fantastic. It's like airborne umami.
Yes. So I can only cold smoke. If I do hot smoke, it'll burn. I burn down.
Yeah.
How do you know that, Michael? I tried it upstairs. Oh, okay. So it's actually here where we smoke a lot of our things, and then mostly of our charcuterie, it isn't smoked. So it's like bacon, some of the salamis, but here is actually like where we are.
And there's a different smell in here. Yeah. Kind of tangy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's here where we have now we have our culture here. When we're talking about mold, there are different colors. When we have sausages, the mold is white. It has a special, normally like a little bit cheesy on our hands. Copper and Lomo, it's gonna be white in the beginning, and then it actually turns green. But it's still a mold, and it's still very, very tasty. And that's the origin of our, special taste.
Monocle's Michael Booth there. This is the menu. Now it's time for the week's top food and drink headlines. Here is Monocle's Sana Jumani.
This week, Travis Ginger, a Minnesota horticulture teacher, secured the top prize at the 51st World Championship Pumpkin Weigh-Off in Northern California with his 1,121 kilogram gourd. Despite falling short of his world record-breaking entry from last year, this is Ginger's 4th consecutive win in the competition. Japanese breweries are developing rain and heat-resistant versions of beer ingredients, as well as new cultivation techniques to combat issues caused by climate change. This includes prolonged exposure to rain right before being harvested. Sapporo Breweries has successfully developed barley that is rain-resistant without compromising on flavour, while agricultural startup Colta has established a technology for the indoor cultivation of hops. And finally, US-based dessert brand Crumble Cookies is speeding up plans to launch in Australia, inspired by an unofficial pop-up in Bondi Beach, which drew large crowds and hype for the sweet treat. The organisers of the pop-up transported hundreds of cookies to Australia in their luggage, which were days old by the time they were sold. The cookie brand's co-CEO, Jason McGowan, revealed he has been scouting potential locations, including in Bondi Junction and Circular Quay. Those are the week's food and drink headlines. Now, back to Kiara.
Thanks, Sana. You're listening to The Menu. If you've ever been to Japan, there's a high chance you might have been fooled by the hyper-realistic models of food that so many restaurants in the country display in their vitrines to attract punters in. It might seem like an old-school marketing method, but it is also surprisingly effective and mouth-watering given the impressive accuracy of these fake plates. Not only that, but these imitations are also a remarkable display of artistry. At London's Japan House, a new exhibition called Looks Delicious has set out to explore the history and production processes used in making these four delights, as well as their unexpected applications in other industries in recent years. Monocle's Mae-Li Evans caught up with the exhibition's programming director Simon Wright to learn more.
If you've been to Japan, I think it's something that people will be very familiar with. It's ubiquitous wherever you go. Many restaurants have food replicas outside advertising what they're serving inside. But in this country, and probably for the most part of the rest of the world, you don't really see food replicas. And so hopefully this exhibition will introduce people to what food replicas are, how they're used, how they're made, and also the applications that exist beyond a menu for a restaurant. This is also an exhibition which is not about food as such, but about food replicas. So it's quite reflexive. It's about the hyper-realism of how food replicas are made and how they are displayed.
How did they become so prevalent and for them to be sort of outside most restaurants?
Food replicas really started to appear in Japan in the 1920s. This was at a time when large department stores were being built in city centres, and these department stores had a top-floor dining hall, usually. These became all the rage. People flocked to these dining halls where there was an emphasis on efficiency, that to get the customers through the door and out again and get the next setting in. A way of avoiding waiter service where people might spend lots of time trying to choose something, getting the order wrong, not liking what they were served. These department stores found that displaying food replicas outside the restaurant was a good way of creating a more efficient system and making more profit. This also coincided with a time when so-called Western food, yoshoku in Japan, was becoming more popular, but people didn't really recognize what they were going to order. So food replicas also provided an opportunity for a curious yet cautious public, the opportunity for them to understand what they would actually be buying.
And you mentioned earlier the hyper-realism of some of these examples. Why is that so important in these food replicas?
The key to making a good food replica is not necessarily its reality, but its hyper-reality. A good craftsperson would aim to stimulate the memory of the food or the haptic experience of the food rather than trying to make it exactly real. For example, suboan, which is the red bean paste, for example, is quite grainy. A food replica craftsperson would make it grainier than it really was, so as to trigger the memory in someone that, that's grainy tsubuan, the red bean paste that I like, which is really grainy. But it's more than it really is. It's exaggerated in some way. And there is also the opportunity with the introduction of technologies in the 1970s of PVC and plastics that allowed display to take off, so that noodles could be suspended above a bowl, hanging from chopsticks, or spaghetti could be wound around a fork, hanging in midair. And this has added an element of play to the replicas. Originally, replicas were made of wax. They were displayed flat. They melted, and the colour often faded in the sunlight. With the introduction of PVC, or this synthetic resin, food replicas were able to be elevated to a 45 to 60 degree angle so that they could be seen more easily from the outside. In the early 1970s, there are several theories as to who actually discovered it. They had this idea of suspending, using frames to get more dynamism in these replicas, and also sometimes more fun.
You were talking there about material innovations in the 70s. I wonder, with technology continually evolving, are there any shifts or movements in that sort of presentation? Is there like another wave of innovation today?
Display of food replicas is always evolving. What's probably interesting at the moment is the question that the industry is asking itself: what is the future of food replica making? It's a business, after all. It needs to make money in order to survive. There are applications beyond the restaurant menu now, especially in nutritional education and also in medical science, where we have an example in the exhibition, for example, of how blood vessels are assembled, and it's a training device for surgeons to how to insert catheters into blood vessels. And it's the materiality of the object itself which is important. They are finding new ways to use the skills that the food replica craftspeople have. People are considering the sustainability of the industry and are always looking for something new.
Thanks, Mae-Li. Looks Delicious, Exploring Japan's Food Replica Culture is on at Japan House in London until 16th February 2025. And that's all for this edition of The Menu. Remember that we are back with a new episode again on Friday at 2000 London time. That's at midday in San Francisco. Also, don't forget to tune into our spin-off show Food Neighborhoods for a tour of some of the world's tastiest destinations. I am Terri Mercieca. This program was produced by Monica Lillis, and our sound engineers were Phil Simons and Mariella Bevan. Thanks for listening, and until next week.